Hello and welcome. It's Wednesday, and I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Janelle.
And we're two moms. Oh, usually we say we're two moms who talk, but we have a third amazing mom with us today who's here, guest co-hosting for the first half of the show, beloved Carter. What's going on?
Hey, everybody. I'm well. I hope you're well. Yes, I am a mom. A lot of kids, 9 of them to be exact. I'm running for mayor of New London, Connecticut. I'm excited about it. I just feel like there should be more community involvement, a right to know, more transparency. Yes. So I am so pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's good to see you.
Hold on. We have an echo, and it's my fault. Unless somebody else has it on in the background. Does somebody have the stream on?
I don't. No. I don't have an echo here.
I don't have an echo here.
Technical difficulties sometimes happen. Whoops. Did you fix it, Stephanie? Well, anyway, beloved, we can talk while Stephanie texts out over there. I have no idea how to fix something like that. I'm trying, but I don't know. My kids have to be here to help me sometimes at this point.
Exactly.
Great.
I'm sorry about that. It must have been me. I had an extra box open. I was hearing everything twice. But yes, beloved, thank you so much for joining us here today. I was actually just with you up in New London walking around, and I wasn't sure what to expect, to be honest. You know, we had never met before in person. Of course, we had been talking online, and I was loving what I saw. But then when we met up in person, we could not walk half a block without somebody stopping their car to pull over to get out to give this woman a hug.
Oh, that's so awesome.
It's like she's already mayor of the city. So
that's what I said offline. I said, I'd be very hard. You have to work at it to not like Beloved. Like I just met Beloved last week in person. And it was a lot of fun. We both learned together, I think, some new skills and just communication skills. And it was a lot of fun. And she just has like that magnetic pull. Like you just want to be her friend. I don't know what.
And so I'm going to encourage people,
spirit, you know,
to go over to her Facebook page, which is facebook.com/beloved for United NL. You can also just search it in the Facebook search bar. It'll come right up. Check her out, and she has her link right on top. Let's kickstart her campaign by going over there. You know, $5, $10, $20. You know, the mayor of New London.
$200.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. The mayor of New London just gave himself a $20,000 raise. So it's like, you're funding his reelection campaign. You can come over here and get I was going to say New London, Beloved started on her campaign.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. New London is a fantastic place to live. And as you yourself said, people come out of the woodwork just to make you feel at home and make you feel loved. And that's the whole community. We are a community of very diverse community. And everyone has things they like to talk about, things that concern them. And that's what I want to hear. I don't want to sit in an ivory tower. I want to be out on the street.
Beautiful. That was me, because I was pulling up how we got out on the streets this weekend, and we were chatting up with some of the people around. So this is over
at Jake's
Diner. Yep, that's his wife there. And you're walking out on the streets saying what's up to people. This is one of the gentlemen who had to pull over to say hi to you, engaging them in conversations. So I encourage you to go over to my YouTube channel. We'll get this posted up on your Facebook page as well. So you can go check that out. That was really fun. We were talking to people about Juneteenth.
Exactly. I got a lot of different answers about Juneteenth, but everyone's always connected it back to freedom and freedom from being enslaved. And it didn't matter what color they were. They all had the same kind of a response for everyone, not just if you're Black, but white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. It's about liberty.
Right.
And so I got a chance to see what what some of their values were, basically where they were coming from. And we all know that values unite. Just like Frederick Douglass was so keen and saying, and even representing in his own life, that values unite. And so that's what we're out to do here in New London. That's what I want to do with the community, to unite New London. No matter what part of the city you live in, no matter who you are important. You have a voice. You need to be heard. We need to listen. We need to care, and we need to do together.
And I know that, like, as you were saying, there's a variety of views on Juneteenth holiday. And I think it's interesting because it seems like what you might call both sides of the argument, although, both sides isn't necessarily super accurate because there's many, but you might say people of the two political persuasions that you might generally associate with right and left both seem to have their own criticisms of the day, right? So people who might be associated more with like the Democratic side, the left side, they're like, oh, they just gave us the holiday, but we don't really see these values today. And then people on the right, they're just a little bit less. They're like, well, we already have July 4th, or they're like, well, they just did it to appease them. Whereas I really think that this could, as you were saying, be a huge thing for both sides to come and unite around, because there really is something that is needed between the Independence Day, where we declared our independence, and yet so many conflicting realities, right? On the one hand, all men are created equal, and yet slavery is one of the underpinnings of our economic system. And the framers were well aware of this contradiction, I think, if you're giving a fair reading of history. And so I think Juneteenth, again, although in 1865, our country, even to this day, still has a long way to go into fully realizing that more perfect union, I think it's an important pinpoint to recognize that this was the day when we fulfilled a piece of that more perfect union, to get rid of this institution, which was such a mark on the notion of freedom for all. And I think that it's important to reinvigorate that year after year after year so that we can do that work.
Exactly. Stephanie, that's so well said. It reminds me of a speech that Frederick Douglass gave about to a women's group, what is the 4th of July to a Negro? And I read that and I was just so touched by it, because basically his complaint was that we were not living up to what our founding fathers had put out, who instituted, who just their heart written out what America should be. And he was basically condemning America for not living up to their legacy of that, all men created equal with certain inalienable rights, So you're absolutely right. If we could see that for the benefit that it is, that it benefits everyone, it would be a better place. It would, again, the legacy of the United States. It would just really show really what we are, who we are, So.
What about you, Danelle? What did you do for your Juneteenth holiday?
Well, I hosted guests only and prepared for more guests. And my son is finally back from a long trip, and he brought his girlfriend and his girlfriend's younger sister. And so and then my daughter and her boyfriend were here. And so I was just like cooking and cleaning and cooking and cleaning, and I'll continue to cook and clean. But what I did, basically I went online and I read Dr. Cranwitter's article on Juneteenth. I think it's really the way that our professor expresses his pride in June 19th or Juneteenth is really unique and important, I think. For like, here's my take. I have, I'm kind of, I certainly lean to the right, and I mean, maybe 3 years ago, I would have been like just a classical liberal, perhaps, maybe leaning to a little fiscally conservative. Now I would be like practically all the way to the right, if compared to the way that things have shifted. But what's interesting to me is I think, and kind of sad, and I would say like watching your video really lifted me up, because I was ready to kind of celebrate Juneteenth, because in that spirit, because of our education and what, we had just talked about, these sort of underpinnings and what it meant that a Union soldier came down, a Republican, and told all of these slaves, you were free, and didn't let go, just that in Galveston, continued on and made sure that people were free and spread the good word. I mean, this should be something that all Americans celebrate. But I feel like there's resistance from the right.
Well,
And
from both sides. It's from both sides, I would say,
Yeah.
even too, because
true.
they're like, it's,
But-
well, it can't just be Juneteenth. It's Juneteenth and this, and this, and this, and
Yeah,
this.
right.
Which, again, I think that they are fair criticisms, but it seems a little bit off balance. It seems like nobody wants to be able to just say, like, well, on this day, we're going to come to the middle, celebrate these principles and values, and then maybe tomorrow we can come back. Why don't we just pull up the article and read through some of it? I think it's worth reading some of this. So again, this is that article. I like reading it on MSN because the way that it comes up is better for viewing here, but it was originally published on American Institute for Economic Research, and it's by Thomas Cranwitter. You can check him out. He has a whole series of books on different aspects, mostly of American history. On June 19th, 1865, just 2 days before the first day of summer, the Union Army marched into Galveston, which is in Texas, where U.S. General Gordon Granger announced that the 250,000 slaves that were in Texas were slaves no more. And if you go and watch our video that Beloved and I did together, she explains how likely these slave owners did know about the Emancipation Proclamation, but because it was so far removed from the rest of the country, they were able to easily just keep them enslaved. There was no enforcement. Now these Union soldiers, they are there to enforce the law. Even though Granger's army arrived in Galveston more than 2 months after the Confederate Robert E. Lee had surrendered to the Appomattox courthouse and John Wilkes Booth had assassinated Lincoln, the only legal basis to declare slaves free in mid-1865 was the Emancipation Proclamation. Right? So this was 2.5 years earlier. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which would abolish slavery throughout the United States, would not be ratified until December. And nearly 6 months after Granger's famous march to so this was 6 months after that.
Yeah.
So again, it's not like there was like a super clear legal basis, but they were using that moral authority from the Emancipation Proclamation and really foreshadowing the legal direction that the country was heading.
Yeah.
News.
That's
go ahead.
The rub right there, right? Like, I mean, the fact that 250,000 slaves didn't know, like, that makes me mad, right? I mean, that's got to make everybody mad. But so I think that's why it's so important, but there's some part of that that's just like, what? Like, who were these people? I don't know. It's very hard to, layer on top of our brains, our 2023 moral codes and ideas and relationships with each other to what that was like, So, I mean, I can see why there's conflict on both sides, because yes, it's a great day to celebrate, but it's pitiful that 250,000 slaves didn't know, you know what I mean? That's part of it.
Well, then I'll tell you this, just from my perspective about that, you're talking about a quarter of a million people working free of charge for as many hours as you want to work them, give them as little as you want to give them in food and housing and clothing as you want to talk about, lessening your overhead. If you're looking at it from an economic standpoint, right? You have a quarter of a million people working free of charge, and it would behoove you not to say anything, because after that, you no longer have that free labor. So you yourself stated that it was woven into the economy of America, slavery.
Well, I get why they would do it from that perspective, but I don't know. There's just something about that. Like,
well,
I mean, obviously everybody else was free. It's just like, there's a tiny little village, actually. I forgot what it's called, but in East Germany, and they did not have televisions. They had no outside contact with the world. So they had no idea what was going on except for in their little village. there's like a German name for them. It's like basically the unknowing. And they, in their case, they lived in this, they had no idea about, the Nazis, I'm probably telling the story wrong, but like, they didn't understand they were oppressed. They didn't understand. They knew there was a party out there, the Communist Party, people were part of it, but they didn't really, they didn't really, it didn't affect them in their everyday lives because they had everything they needed, right? And so, and this is fairly modern, actually. So it must have been post, well, the wall was up, and I can't remember the dates, but anyway, their reality was they were generally speaking happy in their little village. And then eventually the wall came down, and when it did, they got television news and they realized, oh my gosh, my whole life has been a lie. And I met 2 people from that village, and they were telling me stories, and they're like my age, they're probably a little bit older. I think they were like 57, like later 50s, a bit older than me. But they were just shocked. Like they had no idea. The woman said, well, I kind of had a clue because we went on vacation this one time, and I remember seeing kids that like didn't have shoes and they looked kind of dirty. And I thought, well, that doesn't seem equitable. Like it was a pure, everybody was even, everybody had what they needed, right? But so for them, they were in a good situation, and then they had to digest all of this crazy news about the outside world. And so I guess like when I think about 250,000 people that were truly oppressed in every possible way, how did they adjust at that news? Like it's a miracle they celebrate. This is a testament.
Yeah, they do.
Instead of burning things down, they celebrated.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know that I'd be celebrating. I might be burning down.
I think you would be celebrating, actually, because I mean, to them, and this is my viewpoint. Well, it sounds like the Matrix to me, actually. You take the red pill or the blue pill, right? But anyway, they realized, they found out by no doubt a white military officer that they were free, and they saw their slave masters respond, okay, to the order, to the decree, that they were free. And I would say they did not understand. There were generations of people who were enslaved, did not know how to live, did not know what freedom was. Those few that were still alive from having been enslaved and brought to this country had an idea what it was like in their own villages in Africa. So they were the historians, So I would say they celebrated, not understanding the full meaning of what that freedom meant. If you go back to us, when we were the Revolutionary War, when we were free from England, a bunch of ragtag people in America got together and said, enough is enough. We've asked, we've begged, we've pleaded for justice and just treatment, and you didn't comply. You didn't even come to the table to even compromise. So we have to. Well, it says so in the preamble. We throw off the injustices when there's no other way. We've tried everything we know, coming to the table to talk and petition and beg and plead, and finally, this injustice has to go. So America has been at that same point at one time, if she remembers, and so what does that involve? No longer being enslaved. Well, you have to make your own way now. You only, if you're an African at that time, you were given as the little bit of food they gave you. Some were treated better than others, but there was a hierarchy, a classism, if you will. There were people who lived in the house and did the domestic work, and they were treated a little better. You had to look a little better because they had people coming in as visitors, so you couldn't be raggedy and dirty. So you were allowed to dress better. You were given clothes to wear. So you were considered a lot higher than the slave Negro, as they call it. Right. So all I'm saying is that America has experienced that in the past. You have to make your own way. These people who realized, were told they were free, they had this celebration, had no idea the depths of what it entailed, even the responsibility of now we have to make a way ourselves. They either indentured themselves back to the people who enslaved them, or they try to go out and make it on their own, and some people, it was very difficult.
Right. Well, I do want to say, though, that there was a surge, though, of Black independence and entrepreneurship and political leadership. I was just looking it up. Right here, I have the number according to an article.
I mean, that's the part also that I'm talking about. Instead of being angry, they got to work and made their communities. I mean, that is an amazing thing to go from that level of abuse.
Right.
Just like,
so they say that they estimate about 2,000 Black Americans held office at the local, state, and federal levels during Reconstruction period, which is about a 14-year period that follows the end of the Civil War in 1865. So again, I think that is a testament to just the equitable nature of freedom. Right? Do I think that there perhaps should have been some direct reparations from the people who caused harm to the people who were harmed? And do I think that it could have been a feasible thing to do at that time period? I do. But I also think that it is a testament to, by just leaving people alone, right? The government leaving people alone to, build themselves up and to invest in themselves and their community is, sometimes that's the best thing that can be done. Otherwise, again, I think that's a larger conversation to be had, but I want to then connect that to what you're trying to do in New London, beloved.
Okay.
Because I think that there is a reinvigoration of these American ideals that we have to get in touch with. We have to remember how powerful that freedom is. And so I kind of wanted to bring that to the Kelo House case. Because I think that even though this case is nearly 20 years old now, not quite, it was in 1997 or 1998 it began. It is still very representative of what is happening in Connecticut at large. I know it's also happening around the country in various places where developers come in and they're supposed to be bringing jobs and generating more taxes, which is supposed to be for the benefit of the people living there. However, we often know that the corporations end up making off much better than the people. And so I wanted to talk about this story and talk about how you have a much different vision for New London and how to really generate that well-being for the people, and in an economic sense as well, right? Because that's super important. But oftentimes they're just like development, and then they're like, I thought we were talking about the people here. When do the people come into this? So can you give us a little background on the Kelo House case? And you actually live right across the street from where this house is.
I do.
Tell me about it.
Oh my goodness. You said a lot. Well, the Kelo House, yes, it is right across the street from me. It was dismantled and brought here, he said, back in the late 90s. What it was is that electric boat, well, that's the backstory, but Pfizer made an agreement with New London to build a plant, if you will, a huge high-tech plant in the other side of New London. But the only downside of that was there was a thriving community, and something like maybe 2 or 3 generations of Italians and Polish people and some African American people, a thriving community. So they went in and they just said, listen, you were taking this, if we can't buy you out, we're going to buy you out. And some people said, no, thank you very much, we want to stay here. Well, then they were actually forced out. Yes.
Right, using eminent domain.
Eminent domain, exactly. That a private company can take private property to use it for themselves.
Right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
With you have no recourse in this. So this lady that you just showed, she was one of the last standing people in that community. Other people ran, they were forced out. Other people sold out. Other people were just plowed under, like herself. her house was dismantled and brought to the other side of town. And this particular case, the Kelo House case, went all the way, eminent domain, all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. And from what I hear, that itself is going to be overturned. Hopefully it will be.
I hope so.
Oh, wow. Okay. So here,
That would
let's
be
just
amazing.
read. Yeah. So again, I've been doing a bunch of stuff about housing on my channel, about here in Connecticut. I covered a case out in Texas, and it all really is related to this immense power that the government apparently has to decide who is and isn't allowed to own things where.
Exactly.
And so back in 2005, the case had made its way to the Supreme Court, and it's one of the most controversial rulings. It was a split decision, 5-4. It won. And basically what was said was that because economic development is considered public use and they could potentially make more tax dollars from using it this way than they could from the property taxes and personal taxes of the people, that it's for the benefit of everybody. And therefore we get to bulldoze your house, replace it with this.
Exactly. So to your point, Stephanie, which is the backstory, is, like I said, Pfizer had made an agreement with Electric Boat, General Dynamics, backroom deal. We know that you don't have the money, Electric Boat, to build this plant, so we will build it. And so they got a 5-year tax-free, use from New London. And after 5 years, they applied and got granted another 5 years extension to finish building this particular development. And right before that 5-year was up, and they had no tax, they paid no taxes on this. Right before their time was up, they bailed with no repercussions. They bailed out in the city of New London. And
so right when that big tax windfall that was supposed to benefit the public, they're like, oh, just kidding.
Exactly, my bad. So what they did was they said, oh, well, the Electric Boat, General Dynamics said, well, we'll take it off your hands. Fine, for $1. Now, where is this big tax break you're talking about, Stephanie? We build this big plant here. It will generate more tax dollars. Now, Electric Boat is not paying taxes on this place.
Who made that deal? Who made that deal with no taxes?
Pfizer. The city of New London. They are known to give big tax breaks.
Who in the city of New London? Was it your current mayor? Is it council? Is it council there as well? Who gave that deal?
That deal was a former mayor and city council. What was New London was a council-run government, not a mayor-run government back then. So it was people who were the council agreed to do this. I can't say they knew about the backroom deal, but I can say that deal was made, and it has not benefited New London. All the tax dollars that they were going to generate from this company is not happening.
So yeah, it's hard when big companies come in and they start throwing dollars around. People's votes get maybe unknowingly influenced, and we're gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I guess you are there, beloved. I'm a little bit more cynical myself. Something I thought was interesting is in this article I was reading at the bottom, it talks a lot of the stuff that you were talking about, how the economic development the city promised would materialize, never actually did, even after the taxpayers put more than $80 million of their money into the project or in tax cuts. I'm not exactly sure, because sometimes when they say taxpayer money, it's tax cuts or whatever the financial mechanism is. But now it's saying as of May 2022, a private developer is constructing 100 high-end apartments and 100-unit extended stay hotel with a community center that won't pay any taxes. I think that this might be the community center that our friend Sargent was referring to.
The rec center,
and I also think it's interesting because, these are high-end apartments. They're not affordable housing. But high-end apartments are also going to push up the market rates then of all the housing.
Exactly.
And we had talked to these kids. I think that they were working in restaurants or some service industry jobs.
Right.
And they told us they were trying to get apartments.
And they were $1,900 for a 1-bedroom.
Was it 19 or 16?
They said, I believe they said 19.
Okay, so
either way, 16 is a lot.
16, either way, it's too much for that area when you're working in a restaurant.
Absolutely.
And possibly going to school. It's not I mean, it's one thing to have affordable housing. It's another thing just like to be reasonable. Like they didn't have to go from, you know, $100 a month or $200 a month to like 1,600. You know, there's something in between there. And so is that, I mean, the rec center not paying taxes, that seems, you know, a lot of public services don't pay. That's fine. But I surely hope that high-end apartment is being taxed.
Well, there's a backstory to that also. For years, they tried to have that land developed, and nobody would touch it because it's right on the water. It's a flood zone, and so nobody would touch it. So there's other places that New London could have built this rec center. Now, where they have it built now, there's no transportation. It's way on the other side of town. The kids, people who are moderate income, low income, they don't live there. They don't live on that end of town. So, and let me just say this before I forget to say it, that it is not a free rec center. You will have to buy a membership for it. So parents, one single family parents, or even young people living on their own, will have to choose to buy food, pay rent, put gas in their car, or get a membership. So that means out of town people will benefit from this multi-million-dollar complex, which, by the way, has not even begun being built yet. Yeah.
Right.
So but there is a property here that they could have built it right next to, and they own this property. It's called Bates Wood, BATES, right next to the high school, the magnet school. This complex is right there with tons of kids that live there that go to the schools. They could have walked across the street or up the street and been right in it. And there's all this land that they have there. They have a little park there, like a football field, a baseball field there. There's picnic tables. It's really nice. Tons of undeveloped woods back there that they could have built it. And they chose down the other end.
This happens all over the place. I'm so sick and tired of the kids being used.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a kids rec center.
Yeah,
no, it's some sort of club or some reason that you want to put it there to save face or whatever the reason may be. But it's just constant. I mean, here we have referendum where we have to pass our own tax, you know, mill rate. And they consistently, like every single year, we can't have sports for the middle school. We have to close down the drama program every year. And I'm like, or you could not build out executive offices for the superintendent at $350,000.
Yeah.
That's an option.
Exactly.
It's not an option. But nobody talks about that. You go right for the juggler. They go right for the kids. And they're literally using our children against us.
Absolutely.
It's criminal. I mean, and that sounds like something similar is going on. Like, oh, don't be mad at us. We're building a rec center
that no kid can get to.
Can use or afford.
And I want to point out that the job of a mayor, so of course the town, they have their own taxes that they collect for various services that are provided within the town, but a mayor's job is also to distribute funds that come from the state and that come from the federal government. And you know, they may or may not have influence on the creation of those, but they, you know, how much they get or not get, but they get these funds and then they're in charge of distributing them. And what I see happening in New London, like a lot of places, is that they're apparently getting these funds, but they're not actually getting down to the street level, the people who need them. Absolutely. So while I'm not somebody who is like, thinks that we need to have big government to take care of people, I think people are plenty able to do that on their own. I also do believe there is place for some social safety net and that government should play some role in that. And if government is going to play that role, then we at least need to have somebody in that position who really is on the ground and knows the problems. Like you're saying, not somebody who's in an ivory tower, somebody who is on the streets, understands the need of the people, and just like actually knows the people. Like I said, we could not walk half a block without somebody coming out and stopping to say hi to Beloved, thanking her. And she really understands what the people need, from food to childcare to activities for the kids. And the problem is, again, that money's not making it to the street level. We need somebody who's out there who really knows and who can really bring that. And I hope also it's not just a top down thing, but I really see you, beloved, as somebody who can ignite the people themselves. Everybody's busy, they have families, they have so many important things that they're taking care of, and rightfully so. You know, sometimes I get angry at the people. I'm like, come on, people, wake up, where are you? You know,
Exactly.
and perhaps that's not the most effective way to get them out. I think though that you have something special that can really hopefully ignite a spark in the people, bring them out to the street and give them hope again. Because I think that's one thing that's missing, is so many people are just missing that hope. They're like, what's the point?
Exactly. And you know, when that happens, just a spirit of a lethargy comes over. They just get lethargic. And what's the use? Like, we've lost so much. We don't get what we ask for. We keep going and asking. And it's like, it reminds me of, was it one of Charles Dickens' characters? Can I have some more porridge, please? You know, and they get nothing. They get nothing. And you're absolutely right. There is, and I say this, a buttload of money coming into New London. And I say with all due respect. And it doesn't come down, it does not filter down to the people. I feel as though that they're being throwing a T-bone steak into a den of lions, and they have to fight each other to get it. Just, you know, pennies. And you get hit with, well, once we set the budget, you can't change it. We can't change it. We've already decided. Yeah, what you're not saying is that you already decided before you came into the meeting.
Right. Or you're not telling us is that, you know, for something else, you know how to make the reallocation happen, or, you know, oh, we can switch the money here and we'll make it right there, or whatever, you know, we'll just pretend.
So true. You
I
have
see
no
it happen
idea.
all the time. I want you to tell me the story about the gentleman who runs the Whalers, Whalers and Helpers. Wasn't that
Whalers helping whalers? New London is called the whaling city for obvious reasons, because we were a whaling port back in the day. And I'm going to say this. This is a little sidebar. There is a plaque down on the city pier, and it talks about a ship called the Speedwell that came. It was one of the few ships that were directly sailed from New London, downtown New London, straight to Africa to pick up enslaved people and bring them back and distribute them in Connecticut and New London County. You know, so, and I thought it was really ironic because my mother's maiden name is Speedwell. And I've not yet delved into that, you know, as that name has come up so many times. The Speedwell was one of the ships that left out when Christopher Columbus and all those others came out, the Pinta Santa Maria. It sprung a leak and had to go back to Norway or wherever it was. So the name of the ship was Speedwell too. So, but that's just my sidebar. I just wanted to say that. But yes, your question again is.
My question was.
I'm sorry, because I had the bunny trail.
About the whalers helping.
Yes, whalers helping whalers.
Yes.
Tell me,
I want to know the
give
story.
me that concrete example
Oh,
of how the money is not getting down to the street level where there is a need.
There is a man, we call him, his name is Chef Tom. He's a teacher, an educator, actually a chef in New London High School. He teaches the kids. He also opened up a food bank, and he calls it Whalers Helping Whalers. We're called the Whalers here. And Stephanie and I and some other friends, we walked over there, which is around the corner from me. I love living amongst the people. And this place is phenomenal. They have food. They have everything from diapers and mouthwash to bikes and backpacks and food, fresh food, meats, everything. And this man, Chef Tom, if they run out, say the doors open at 11, but as you saw, Stephanie, people were lined up there much earlier than that. I mean, a whole line of people down the street waiting to go in and shop, not be given a box of things you'll never, ever eat, but you go in and you shop what you would eat. You know, what you would like for your family. If you have a family of 5, they pile you with food, whatever you want. It's like going in the grocery store and just picking up what you want. And I've seen it sometimes they would run out of, I'll say, rice or something. This man would take money out of his own pocket, his own account, and go and buy it, and to stock and make sure everyone goes out with some rice if that's what they need, you know.
And what I love about the way they run this is that it is all volunteer from the
All
community. So
volunteers.
everybody who you see in there
Yes.
are people who help run this. So I truly
Yes.
do feel like it is this ground up grassroots thing that, yes, it takes funding from the government to make it happen, but it's not one of these faceless government agencies. It's
Exactly.
truly a place where people come to meet with their neighbors to make sure that everybody has what they need. And it's not one of those things where people just come to take. It certainly,
It's not.
you know, the way that everybody knows each other in those places, it was truly a community-driven endeavor. And again, these are the ways that government should be connected to the people, rather than having he doesn't even live there. He works in that community. He loves that community so much. And yes, I do think everybody has a part to play. And
What you do
sometimes,
know.
yeah, going into your own pocket, but it's a systemic issue. It wasn't just like a one-time thing. It's continuously these street level services that the community needs, that all these people pay taxes into as well, you know, from whether they pay property taxes or the sales tax, you know, things like that. Again, state level taxes, and the state then has to give the money back. So we really need to figure out what is the best ways to use that money, and it can't be done from that top down place. Maybe there is a place for a big corporation to come in if they truly are providing value and jobs and embedding themselves within the community too. Right.
Exactly.
But the way that Pfizer electric boat deal happened obviously did not happen with the people in mind. It seems like that legacy is continuing in today with this high-end apartments and moving the community center all the way across town from the actual place of need. I know we asked you for a half an hour of your time, beloved. We've gone a little bit over. Is there anything else that you want to let the people know?
Yes, and I thank you for giving me this extra time. What you don't know, Stephanie, perhaps, that everyone you saw in there were people who used to be recipients of those services. They've gotten on their feet, and they came in and they volunteered their time. Every single person in there was a person who used to be coming in that line to get food to feed their families until they can get the job, until they can get the hours, you know, and provide for themselves. And they came back to give back to the community. Chef Tom did petition the city council. They got a lump sum of money. He petitioned them to get a walk-in freezer, and you know, it cost thousands of dollars. They gave him pennies. They gave him nothing. And then they tried to shut him down, as you heard yourself. They tried to shut him down 2 weeks ago, and the people went to City Hall and they protested. So this is a beautiful community, loving people. We just have to get our civic leaders on board. You know, not about concrete building, like I said, edifice, but it's about compassion for the people.
And so I'm going to give a plug one more time. No matter where you are, if you're in New London, if you're in Connecticut, if you're somewhere around the country, listen, this country is going to be saved one city at a time, one mayor at a time, one school board leader at a time. So I encourage you, go over to facebook.com/beloved4nl, hit that link that is featured right at the top of her page, and make a generous donation. She needs your money. America needs this money, because New London it's one of these places that when people start coming over to this country, that's one of the first places they landed. Everything from the slavery to the bells of freedom and back again. That's what it's about.
So true. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, beloved.
It's good to see you again, Janelle.
Yeah, we'll have to have you on again here sometime.
Yes, for sure. Keep us posted. Anytime you want to come on, we'll give you a platform and get it out. We'll do some clips and send it out to everybody. It's super important. I'm very excited.
Thank you so much.
All right, beloved. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. She's awesome.
Yeah. I was like, again, I was like, I wasn't sure what to expect when, you know, you go up there and you meet somebody who's, I'm running for mayor. And you're like, okay, are you really running for mayor? You know? And then I was like, nah, this lady is already mayor. It's just about making it official on page. It's about really using the power of the people to ignite that movement.
Well, that
And
means she needs the money even more, because when there's somebody like that from a community, they will stop at nothing to stop her, because she does have her finger on the pulse. And it's just so sad. I can't believe, I didn't even realize this. When I think of New London, I think it's like one of these big areas, like a big city, right? Because it has an urban aspect to it. But there's only 27,000 people. It's
yeah,
tiny.
no, I know. That's what I'm saying. It had a very small town feel when I was there. It isn't one of these big cities. It's actually a pretty small town.
Mhm.
And
But it's like so many bullies have come in and beat these people up. It's incredible. Like,
right, because it was such uh, a economic powerhouse,
mhm,
from the shipping and then even into the factory stuff. And then of course, when a lot of the factory stuff got shipped overseas, and then New York City really took the bulk of the shipping kind of business, and down in Newark, it it lost a lot of that. And then
right.
of course, there's all sorts of other state politics that
Do you
go
know what
into these
district
types
they're
of
in? Like,
things.
who's their state rep and who's their like senator? Is
I
it
couldn't tell you off the top.
Courtney? I can't imagine who
Could
that
not
is.
tell you. Could
Hmm.
not tell you off the top.
Because,
But
those are the people that are making those backdoor deals. It's not just the city council, you
right,
know?
there's a lot of like state money that's going to be influenced into there, and so
Like
I
here, we have a mill it's the longest running woolen mill. It's called American Woolen. And it was in danger of closing. And the whole town, I mean, a lot of people were employed there. The whole town was just like really upset about it because it had been running for so many years. I think it's like, I don't know how many years now, but many, many years in a row. And so an investor came in, and we were super excited to have him. But there was, everybody's like, yeah, it's going to help our tax base. No, 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 actually, it's not, because thank you very little. Joe Courtney cut the sweetheart of all sweetheart deals. And so, it's just, this happens all over the place. I feel like, I understand we want economic development, but can we have some sort of balance? And, this is not a knock on American Woolen. They do employ, it stayed open. They're making, they just got the contract, I think last year, for the, like the army, suits, like their formal
okay,
wear.
yeah, to make
It's a
the
big contract, but they do high-end, suits. And, I mean, it's great. I'm super happy that they're here. But, I don't know exactly the details of the deal, but I feel like it's
it
something that
just
we should
seems
investigate.
right. It seems like there ought to be a way to do these things in the light. And
Mhm.
if there
Right,
isn't, either A, government probably doesn't belong doing it,
right.
or B, we need to take a look at reforming some of the laws and policies around that area. And I
Yeah,
also think that we need some clarity on some of the accounting and how that works. When they say it's this much of taxpayer money, is it like actually taxpayer money? Is it taxpayer rebates? Is it credits? Is it how much
right.
the taxpayers might get if they produce and did this much in business? And, how many jobs are we actually talking here? And how much of that goes back into the city versus how much are these corporations just taking and, keeping in their coffers for, again, when government and business start intermingling this much, I'm just sort of like,
Yeah.
sends off a
Yeah,
lot of,
well, I mean, in New London, I think they're so it's already so convoluted. Somebody needs to go and, like, you know, with a fine-tooth comb and pick the nits out. I don't know why lice
I
just
don't
came to
know.
mind.
No, I agree. So I wanted to, Pride Month. So I wanted
Indeed.
to cover a pride story in the last 10 minutes before we got out of here a little bit, switch gears a little bit. And you had sent me this story. It's a Connecticut specific one, but it's definitely got
Mhm.
some national coverage. I think that I'll just play the video and then
Well, that kind of says it all.
we can add some context around as needed.
Yep.
So,
and this is a teacher that's going to talk about his experience.
So this is a teacher at Kennelly School, and he's talking about Pride Day. So there's a Pride Day going on at the school-sponsored Pride Day, and then this is his video.
Today was a Pride Day at school, so here I am. And yes, I did walk around like this all day, just because. But anyway, I just wanted to express some gratitude for being able to work in a place where I can show up as my full authentic self, not only today, but every day. It's taken me a long time to get to a point where I feel comfortable doing that. And I also know that it's an immense privilege to be able to do that, given the state of our country these days. Teaching is extremely hard sometimes, but I can honestly say that the thing that keeps me going is knowing my power as a queer educator, and the power that me showing up like this 180 days a year in front of kids, the message that sends them is really what reaffirms my commitment to education and showing them something that they might never have seen before, in a way that no one else is doing in my school. But I just wanted to let everybody know, I know there's so many people, educators and students out there that are not able to go to school and feel safe the way that I do. So that is in the forefront of my mind, not only today during Pride Month, during, every day that I show up here. Be vocal, be loud, be present, show up. Your presence is powerful. That's an affirmation that I say every day with my class, in addition to my authenticity makes a difference. Mine does, yours does. Yeah. Happy Pride 24/7, 365.
So I'm going to be honest, like in terms of some of the crazy, TikTok videos I've seen, this one is quite tame.
We had very different takes on this. I actually love him. I think he's great. I do. Honestly, I mean, listen, there are a few things that we could pick out about this guy, right? Or about his message, I should say. But like, first of all, like if my teacher showed up like that, I might pay a little more attention. You know what I mean? Like he looked like he was having fun. Yeah, maybe the double earring thing, it was a little bit too much, but it would be maybe distracting. But it looked to me like he was trying to be fun. He didn't have on scary makeup, like some dragged. He didn't have anything exposing himself. He wasn't, I don't know. I feel like that was super tame. I feel like, and also as we had like a side conversation about this just through text, I feel like the school sponsored it. He's not doing anything wrong.
Right, yeah, I certainly, in that
Like,
context, I don't want to be like, oh, this teacher's a horrible person.
I think it's a little weird though that it's getting attention when it's like, what if people have a problem with it, they should be talking to the superintendent, the principal, the board of education, not this guy. He literally did what he was told to do. It is Pride Day. Hello, I am here to be full of pride. Like, which is a weird thing to say because, I don't know. Being prideful is not the opposite of humility, which is not so cool, really. But
right. I mean, there certainly should be a tension there, right? Between your pride and your humility. And it does seem in general like pride's gone way off the deep end.
But he doesn't sound like he is. And I feel like vilifying somebody like him, which is why it concerns me that it's national, is wrong. Like, I mean, look, the things that he said that bother me, be loud, be vocal. That would be like me saying, I want to talk about how much I love having sex with my husband in a classroom.
I don't
just
know.
feel
I
like
didn't take that. It wasn't that concerned me as much. Like I said, I felt like this one was tame
it
in
was
terms of
super
what
tame,
they
but like
said.
if,
And
I'm just saying, if I
right,
had to pick something, it would be that last bit. But to me, that's not what it didn't sound like what he was saying. That was like an affirmation and what his community says. And I think
right. It
he's
was
just
like a
repeating
script.
that.
It was like
Like
safe and
I would
effective.
be I would be perfectly fine if that man was my kid's teacher, if we had an open dialogue with I don't want ideology being taught, right? Like you can be gay and teach and be a great teacher and be amazing and captivate children in a way that others can't. And I don't mean, yeah, in a creepy way, like you're going to turn them gay or something. I mean, bringing a certain level of energy that that not everybody has. And that's kind of personality. But, if you want to stereotype gay men in particular, effeminate gay men, which he didn't even particularly seem that effeminate to me, but just like, they can bring a certain kind of energy that's like super fun to watch and participate in, as long as it's
Right.
focused on content
Right.
of
I
math
guess that's
and
that's
reading.
the thing for me, is that it seems like the balance has gone off. I think that there's certainly something powerful about somebody who is not your typical person, whether it be somebody who's, gay, like very like stereotypically
Right.
effeminate kind of gay, or
Or like
somebody who is
flamboyant or whatever.
yeah, flamboyant, there you go, or
Mhm.
somebody who is I don't know, a female who might not be, the stereotypical
Mhm.
female, or somebody who is, of a certain cultural background in a profession that you might not normally see that, or in an environment where you don't. I certainly think that there's something powerful about being different and doing the thing and doing it really well, and like, yeah, showing up as yourself and inspiring other people to do those things. Like, I definitely see myself being like, yeah, sometimes the only reason I show up is because I do know, like, there's that one kid in the classroom that maybe by me saying something, their life will be a little bit better. Like, I can see
Mhm.
myself saying a lot of the things. It just seems like there's this very like sexualized
Yeah.
thing
I mean,
about
that's
it.
the problem. Like, well, I mean, this is what I was saying on text to you, and I'll just repeat it out loud. It's sort of sad that this has become their identity, but because, as we discussed, many gay people, whether male or female, are literally teased at very, very young ages. They might not even be aware. I use the example of my brother, where, I mean, he loved magic. Is there something gay about magic that I don't know about? Because my brothers tormented the hell out of him. I bought him, of course, a giant magic thing. And I was like, dude, you do you. You know what I mean? Like, but, maybe they were men and they sensed something I didn't. Or, I mean, maybe I don't think he was thinking about that. He was freaking 5 years old, And, I love my brothers. I don't think they meant it. I think they meant it in jest.
But they tormented him based on that sexual
Yes.
identity,
Now
is what you're saying.
there was equal tormentation. Okay, because I had dark hair, I'm the only one with dark hair and dark eyes. I was the postman's kid, and legit for a while I was like, "Damn, am I?"
You were the postman's kid. So
I
you got made fun of for being like the kid that actually wasn't in the family.
Because
Got
I
it.
had different hair color.
Okay.
So they picked on, like, and I participated in some of this too. Like there were different things that we would. It's kind of our way of communicating. I should say I'm one of
It's
9.
low-hanging
So
fruit almost, like the thing that
yeah,
makes
exactly.
different. Yeah, I've
So,
seen that too,
you
like the
know,
kid who's overweight, like they'll pick on you for being fat, or like even
yeah,
sometimes, like I've seen it done with curly hair. I've seen it done
yeah,
with different. I've even seen kids like do it based on skin color, but like so innocently, right? Just like
yeah,
it's the
like
thing that
you're
sticks out
ashy,
to them.
like
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, like
and
get some lotion on that skin. You're so ashy. Like
yeah.
I worked in the South Side of Chicago for many years, and like I didn't even know anything until, well, I mean, I had some friends, but like I really got immersed in Black culture there, and that's like how people banter back and forth in bring up, because you said race, I'm just bringing up, like, I think that's normal within a family setting and within all different kinds of communities, kind of like poke at each other, like, like you're just bullshitting with each other.
Right.
But it can go too far. And when you have a weakness, that can really stick and that can really hurt you in a way that then you build defenses. And if you spend your time as a young person defending why you're effeminate or why you're not, why you're a female, and like you were a non-traditional female, you like to dress in boys' clothes. If you spend all of your time defending that posture, then as an adult, that could have, for you, that's not a big part of your life to defend yourself. But there is, I think it's natural, right? It's like there's certain, if you've developed and you've had to protect yourself and you've had to defend yourself, then you can feel like a mini activist, even if you're not wanting to be. And so I have a lot of, as you know, a lot of compassion, like Beloved talks about, a lot of empathy for that experience and for why they might be centered on their identity. And I think the problem is that, well, there's a lot of problems, but I mean, the thing that's most objectionable is that because it's sexual. That's why you have a problem with it. If it was,
Right.
I think, like,
Well, I
there's
also just
something
think that it
creepy
has to do
about,
with the locus parentis part of it, right? Is
right,
that
as a teacher, you have a,
right, you can create a safe space for students of all different backgrounds,
Mhm,
identities to feel
mhm.
comfortable, but I still think that you have to respect the fact that it's the parents' first role. And I think that they've overstepped the bounds by just assuming that, well, kids can't come out to their parents because they are going to not be accepting of them. It seems like that's kind of the status quo, whereas I don't think in 2023 that is the status quo. I'm not
It
saying
isn't.
that there's parents who wouldn't. I'm sure there are parents who are who would be, perhaps abusive to their kids or do something, disown them. I'm not saying there isn't, but I certainly think that is the exception, and
Yeah,
that
I
most
agree.
parents would figure out a way to work through this very foundational identity forming experience. I think that's where it is for me, where teachers seem to have taken the audacity, whether it be on a student's sexual identity, whether it be on their race, whether it be on other aspects of their education, thinking that somehow the parents aren't the best person to include in that conversation, that for some
Yeah.
reason we have to do these things in school in a way that seems so dissimilar from celebrating anything else. Like, I don't see any
Mhm.
companies or schools changing their logos to the American flag when it's Independence Day, but all of a
Right.
sudden in Pride Day or even for Juneteenth, like Pride Day, everybody's got their things with all the different colors and in the shape of the flag. And
Okay, well, let me be clear. I am over Pride Month. Absolutely. Like, I just feel like, I mean, maybe it could be a day. You could have a day. They have many different days during the year, though. It's like, National Trans Day, National Bi Day, there's no National Straight Day that I'm aware of.
well,
Like,
every
they
day is National Straight Day, Danelle. No, but I mean, I get it. It is true, right? Kind of like the default every day is that. I think there is legitimacy to that
Yes, but
argument.
every day is white day then. We're majority white.
That's
So
a fact.
what,
That's the
like,
fact.
okay, so what the hell? You know what I
I
mean?
mean,
Like, you can't.
well, white is weird. Like, I would love to talk about this too, like more. I think like white isn't the same thing as like black. I think like black is much more similar to like being Jewish or like even being Italian. Right. Versus like white is like it's like white is like all of like you can be Italian and Jewish and like all these things, whereas being black is much more similar to like a culture or a heritage or a religion, even in a sense.
Mhm,
Like because
mhm.
versus
Well,
like
I mean,
white is sort of like
there's lots
this
of mixed, I mean,
yeah,
how many
there's
people do you meet that are like half white, half black, half whatever, even Asian
oh,
mixed
there's 3
people?
halves?
Oh yeah, right. Okay, a third, and a third, or
My son, you know, he's got my side, so I've got like the Ashkenazi Jew and like the Northern European, and then his dad's side, he's got he's like a mix of African American Black, which is somewhere in Africa, and then the
there you
Caribbean
go. You're talking about
Black
like
is somewhere
6
else,
at this
plus
point.
Native American, and they also definitely have you know, some white on their side as well, or again white, whatever that means, some European descent.
I kind of forgot about your son, but also I was going to say this before you mentioned your son, but like what beautiful people mixed races make. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, those people are some of the prettiest people in the world.
Like mixing, I feel like that makes your like, because like that's the one of the issues, like for example, like Ashkenazi Jews, you have to really be careful because you can be a carrier of Tay-Sachs. So Tay-Sachs is like a really horrible, something like gets deformed, and like you don't live past many years old if you live at all. So it's one of those things, because of when you have your genes too close together,
Right.
sometimes whereas you have more diversity, you can actually create stronger gene pools. So
Right.
I think that's something,
there is strength in diversity, of
yeah.
course.
So again, it's the tension between the two that we need to, I think, pay more attention to. So I really liked that we got into this conversation. I think it's a great example of where we can probably find some common ground, because like you said, you know, the first time around, I was probably a little bit more triggered than I should have been, but watching it this second time, I was like, you know what, this was pretty tame.
Yeah.
And
I think it's like, you know, we have pride saturation.
That's
Like,
what it
I
is.
just like you just full up, and I find myself overreacting sometimes to things like that too. And you know, I have to like have a talk with myself, like, okay, like you don't want to be that, you know, I talk to a lot of people from all different sides, right? But I do feel like I feel like for some reason, it's just, I know what it is. It's because they are targeting our kids. Not everyone, but there is a target on the kids. That community, and it's not even that community. You have gays against groomers,
Yeah.
but there is a group of people, and I don't even know if it's the gay community. To be honest, it could be like, I don't know, it could be you know, uber left liberal somebody that is clearly targeting our children. I mean, look at what Target did. You know, they've got in the children's sections, tucking bathing suits and all of this bizarre stuff. I don't know that they're like, until you give me a market study that shows me a percentage that's worthwhile, I think that they're just reaching out. They're trying to normalize it. And it's so destructive, that particular piece of it. Like, let these kids figure it out on their own. If a kid is trans, that's going to happen. Why are we promoting it and then celebrating it when it's actually a mental illness? It's horrifying from a family perspective to have to deal with that. And I don't think that they should be shunned either. Like, okay, if this happens, we have to deal with that. We have to get you therapy, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So, but I find myself like, when I see that trans flag, I'm happy. I'm fine. If I see a regular pride flag, the rainbow, I love the rainbow. That's fine. I see a trans flag, I'm like,
Triggered. Well, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of the Kilo case in a lot of ways, or like the development stuff that we were talking about, how people truly do have needs on the ground, where some of the ideals and ideas that are being expressed up here, they match that, right? Like, we want to be inclusive of people. We want to get people mental health services. We want to make sure people feel seen, and we believe representation matters, right? Just like how they were, we want development. We want to bring development to the city. We're going to create more public good for the people. And yet somewhere between these conversations up here at the governmental level and down here with the people, there's a huge disconnect in where the money goes, how the services are being delivered, and who is really making out from these deals. Because just like in New London and so many places around the country, it really seems like the developers are making out. And just like with all of the trans stuff, it seems like big pharma is making out. It seems like the government is making out because they're getting more and more powers. It seems like even in many ways, the schools are getting more power. So it seems like the equation is backwards. We have a lot of the right pieces, but somehow we have to flip it a little bit so that
I try to remember the pendulum often swings, right? So I think
a little bit of an
pride
overcorrection.
pendulum is like swung all the way, and it's like, it's
I
at
know,
the
but I'm
very
scared
top.
to swing too far back, like that's the scary part, is that I don't want to swing back into just straight up anti-gay bigotry.
I don't think it will. I mean, I don't know. I think like I see some of that happening for sure. And that's very disappointing. And I always pointed out, like, hey, like, every gay person, that does not represent every gay person, just like I don't represent every Irish person,
And it
etc.
doesn't undermine what the gay rights movement achieved by getting equality under the law,
I know
right? For
it's very
marriage.
disappointing. I really hope that like groups like Gays Against Groomers can separate. Like
Mm.
I forget, I maybe it was like a TikTok that I don't know, just showed up in my Facebook feed or something, that basically they were saying like, we are the LBG. We don't know where the T came from, but we don't want it there anymore. Like we want a divorce.
I've seen that. I see. That's what Rachel from Gays Against Groomers said too.
Oh, is that
Although,
maybe that was it?
yeah, she did say though that you know what, she doesn't want to be so like, oh, there's no T at all, like no trans at all, because you and I, we know people who are
Yes.
trans who are on our side, you can say,
Right.
who say
Correct.
like, this is a decision I made as an adult. There was a lot of safeguards put in place. I'm glad that I waited. I did have these struggles, but that is the process I needed to go through in order to be able to like
Yep.
genuinely feel good in this transition process. And it's probably not right for most people.
And they
So
want to protect children, like Angel Buck, who's a very
right.
famous transvestite. She or
Angel, yeah.
no, not transvestite.
Trans man.
Trans man. Thank you. I was actually on one of her
He.
calls. Thank you. I got myself all turned around. Sorry, Angel. Okay. Anyway, but here's the thing, Angel Buck. If he was watching this right now, just that wouldn't even be like, she's not being an ass.
Right.
Whoops. Right. Like I was thinking about that life story. She started out as a female. She was a
Right.
supermodel, like just incredible life, knows that she has gender dysphoria, accepts that, transitions, but she has formed her own group. I don't know what the name of it is. Basically for people that are living as, as trans men or trans women, or in the process, that are against transitioning children. And so, we need to know that these people are normal, regular, everyday people. Yes, they have dysphoria. In some cases, the surgery did resolve that for them, and they're happy, productive
Right.
participants. I mean, just to clarify.
Well, I think the big thing is that they're super honest about is that every single day is centered around taking hormones
Yes.
or, and sometimes also they don't do all of the different surgeries, like the
Mhm.
changing of the downstairs sexual organs,
Right.
because it's like so medically complicated and
Right.
like long term, it's just like really hard to sustain because you essentially have a wound for life.
Yeah,
And
like to
can't
say
have
that.
sexual pleasure and things like that.
Well, I
So I think
remember we
that
used to say things like, I would even say this maybe about some of my family members. I wouldn't want them to be gay because it's such a hard life. And people would think that I meant socially, but I did not mean socially. I meant there's other things to consider. They can't have children, like not normally, right? Not biologically. Um, they're just so, it does complicate what is already difficult. Like just to have a functioning normal relationship with another human being is hard enough as a heterosexual, let alone you layer that in there. And then, oh, if you want to have kids, wait, we have to adopt, or maybe we do this, or maybe we do that. It's so complicated. Now add in the medical complications that these people are experiencing. It's just horrific. If you hear some of the stories, it's absolutely frightening. Like I don't know if
yeah,
any of my
I think it'll
children.
be interesting to see how how Pride will be moving forward with the detransitioner movement, and if there will be any space for it to evolve to be more inclusive of, like, truly inclusive of all the different aspects and experiences of people that have these dysphoric experiences, or, you know, live outside of the normal gender binary, however you want to express it.
Well, all I can say is leave our kids alone. I mean, I think that's the biggest message. That is the problem. That's where they've overstepped
So
their
you think leave
bounds.
our kids alone is sort of the equivalent of speak loud and proud, or whatever? I almost feel like it's like,
Yeah, maybe
yeah,
it is, but the way that I mean it is quite literally allow, whether they be gay, straight, or trans, or is there something else I'm missing? No, that's
bisexual,
it is.
queer,
All of those things.
non-binary.
Let that evolve naturally. I'm not look, I mean, one of the things to consider is all of this trans movement, you're eradicating gay people. Like literally. Instead of
Yeah,
them just being gay, they're now trans, which is a whole nother ball of wax. You know what I mean? It's a different life, it's a different lifestyle. It has to be because there's so much medical intervention.
right.
So, you know, when I say it, I don't mean it as a dog whistle per se. Likewise, that teacher, I think he was repeating something he heard, like be loud, be vocal, because like he does think that, but I don't think he's being loud and vocal and obnoxious in his school. I don't know. But the
Right.
way
No, I
that
was
he
just saying, like, I
presented,
kind of understand why, like, why each side has their little, like, things that they say. Not that you shouldn't
sure.
say them. I just wanted to draw that equivalence. Like, I thought I liked this conversation because I do think that we are truly being, like, fair. Like, we're
Mhm.
using, like, the strong man arguments and really trying to confront them, and be in a place where that tension exists, and not saying, no, it has to be all the way over here, or it has to be all the way over here.
Well, it
That
can't be. I mean, it can't be because
right.
you're dealing with human
So
beings,
yeah, and
right?
I
Like,
hope that people out there, anybody who's listening right now or watching the replay, let us know in the comments down below, like, how do you feel about this video in particular, and where it stands kind of on this spectrum of, like, whoa, pride gone way, way too far, versus like, oh, we can't have any of that gay stuff in our schools at all. That's the
I
scale.
think
Way, way
people are
too
gonna be
much
mad at
pride.
us.
Get all that gay shit out of our schools. um,
I know
uh,
conservatives will many conservatives that I know will be mad at me, but there are many conservatives that won't be, that totally feel the same way, you know?
right.
So,
So I
and
yeah,
and then
again,
on the left, of course, you know, liberals are gonna be like, "How could you say that?" You know, especially because like the level of influence that this um that people have had in my life from this community was pretty huge.
right.
So it's not like, you know,
At the
so
end
we'll
of the
see.
day, I think what could solve this all? School choice. School choice. School choice. We don't need centralized authorities pushing down massive agendas onto our children.
Well,
Let
school
teachers
choice
and schools,
with no
hire.
strings attached. That's the problem.
Right. No
You know,
strings
because
attached.
when you take government money, then you're under the thumb of the government mandates. And so to me, I don't really see that as a solution. It's a step in the right direction. More choice is better to me, especially right now. But I
I
the
do wonder, like,
mandate,
how it does work, because it's like, okay, once, even if you do, like, no strings attached, it's still sort of like messing with the price of education, right? Because if the government decides like $7,000 is the credit that you get, right? They still would be like setting the market rate and interfering with the market cost of education. And I think, like, we saw how that worked in the college, where it really drove up the cost of
right,
college by
right.
government setting sort of like how much money you can get from loans and this and that. So I certainly think that we need to, again, talk about how much do we really want government to do, and how can we generate some of these programs just more organically from with our own communities, like Beloved was saying, that um they can know as a community who is really in need, and they can hold each other accountable with those social mechanisms of, like, so everybody starts talking about Joey, because we kind of know that Joey doesn't need to be in line over here, right? Actually, Joey
Mhm.
should probably be over here helping us out. And so we can handle those things really directly and organically from within the community if we're actually in charge of the resources ourselves. And hopefully we can convert that mechanism over from getting the funds down from the state level to like genuinely deciding like, actually my taxes are super low and I want to help my community. I'm going to put $100 a month towards the soup kitchen because that's what I want to do, because I know the people that work there and I know the people who get the food from there, and I go volunteer there often. So I would love to see us get more on that path of those services organically coming from the community rather than having some faceless government or bureaucracy come in and be like, this is what you need. And I do think that a good road to get there is more leadership like Beloved, right? We're not going to have our perfect world where there's like no taxes all of a sudden, but if we can at least get people in the place that are starting to bring some light to the process and distribute things truly more equitably, right? Even though we don't like that word.
Well, the other thing about Beloved is that, you know, I feel like, look, what's happening in New Haven has not worked for many years. Many years. I mean, New London, sorry. And
I kept saying New Britain and New England. So.
New London. Okay. I think she's very creative. Like when you talk to her about solutions, like she's got some really cool ideas. And because she was raised in that community and raised her children in that community, and I think how many generations back?
She was telling me 7.
7. Okay. So this is somebody that really understands that community. And so I feel like we really, particularly right now, we need people like her to step up, and we need to get them into that office so they can apply their knowledge of the community and actually do, like, government's role, well, is to get out of our way by and large, right? But, you know, if you have a representative government, as we do, they're supposed to be representing the people that have elected Beloved to be in that office. And I see so many times what happens is they might have good intentions, or, you know, or they just are polished and they get in there and then they just represent they get pulled in all these different directions. I don't see Beloved falling for any of that crap. She's going to be like, it's an interesting idea.
Well, when you're so embedded in the streets too, you know, like I think unfortunately you have to be a little bit wealthy usually, or in a place where you've kind of gotten out of the struggle to have the space and forethought to be like, oh, I'm going to run and I'm going to, you know, put these things in place. Unfortunately, I think that's kind of like the nature of the beast.
But that's good because she is in the place where she can do this. She's you know,
but she's stayed embedded in the community in a way that I think a lot of like well-to-do, like bourgeois people don't, right? They take their stuff and move out to the suburbs, whereas Beloved chose to move herself directly into the heart of downtown New London, next to one of the most iconic houses that really represents the beast that we are up against. So I can't encourage people enough to go over to facebook.com/beloved for United NL. Check her out, support her campaign. And we're going to be back here, same time, same place next week. Make sure that you like this video, subscribe, share out the stream to a friend. And we'll have more to talk about next week, I'm sure.
Yep. Sounds good.
We'll see you then.
All right. Bye.